Hello everybody and welcome to Foul Mouth Productions. I am your host Triggs, and today I want to talk about a game called Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. Kingdom Hearts is a real-time action RPG that was developed and published by Square Enix. It was originally released on the PS2 but was later released on the PS4 and Xbox One. In Kingdom Hearts, you play as Sora. You travel from world to world with Donald and Goofy, meeting multiple iconic Final Fantasy and Disney characters, while closing keyholes to other worlds and fighting the Heartless. In the beginning, you are given a choice of 3 weapons. There's a sword that will increase your strength, a shield that will increase your defense, and a staff that will increase your magic. You can only choose 2 and have to sacrifice the other. Whichever one you choose to sacrifice will leave you with a disadvantage in that field, and will shape your playstyle. You'll also gain access to certain abilities sooner based on what you choose. After that, you're asked a question by 3 friends. There are 3 answers with each question, and what you choose affects how you earn experience throughout the game. Choosing the first answer for each will help you level up quicker in the early game, but you'll get less XP for later levels. Choosing the second answer for each will help you level up mid-game, but you'll get less XP much sooner and far from the level cap. And finally, choosing the third answer for each will help you with the end game. This choice helps you with getting to the max level the fastest, but makes the early game a lot harder. With all that out of the way, let's get to the story. Kingdom Hearts starts in a place called Destiny Island. This is where you meet Sora, Riku, and Kairi, 3 childhood friends who have been hoping to one day leave the island and visit the outside world. One day they finally decide to leave and start gathering materials to build a raft. While Sora is out gathering materials for the raft, he meets a robed stranger, who tells him that his world is connected to the darkness now. Sora ignores the robed stranger and continues gathering for the raft. After everything is collected, everyone decides to go home and rest before leaving the next day. This is when you're introduced to Donald and Goofy, who just found out that their king Mickey is missing. Luckily enough, Mickey left a message saying that he's investigating why other worlds have been disappearing and that they have to find someone with a key. Later that night, Sora notices a storm coming in and leaves to make sure that the raft doesn't get damaged. On his way to the raft, he's attacked by shadow-like enemies. Sora manages to fight his way through until meeting up with Riku, who tries to convince him to give into his darkness so that they can all travel to the other worlds. Sora refuses, and doing so is granted the power to wield the Keyblade. Riku then disappears into the darkness. After his confrontation with Riku, Sora leaves to find Kairi. He finds her in the same place he met the robed stranger, but is too late as the darkness breaks through to their world and consumes it. Sora is left behind to fight a few of the shadow-like enemies, but eventually is pulled into a black hole and later wakes up in Traverse Town. This is when you meet up with Donald, Goofy, alongside Leon, Yuffie, and Aerith. Your newfound friends explain that the shadow enemies you've been fighting are called the Heartless, and they fear the Keyblade. It's further explained that the Keyblade is used to close keyholes in order to stop the darkness from being able to enter other worlds and consume them. The adventure truly starts here as Sora begins his search for Riku and Kairi, while jumping world to world, closing keyholes with Donald and Goofy at his side. After you're done exploring Traverse Town, you're introduced to your way of transportation between worlds, the Gummy Ship. These sections are pretty much a mini-game between areas. You have aerial battles with the Heartless until you make it to the world you selected. I honestly had no love for this part of the game. It felt out of place, and I think Kingdom Hearts could have done without it. You do get to meet Sid eventually, who sells parts for the Gummy Ship, allowing you to customize it, and this does help to make it less annoying, but in the end, it wasn't enough for me. Thankfully, there's a fast travel option introduced pretty early on, so I didn't have to do this section too often. As for the worlds themselves, they are the usual Disney themes, but Sora's involvement with the story is less canon and more fanfare. Outside of that, Square Enix did an amazing job recreating the iconic Disney worlds. The worlds are bigger and more exciting to explore than I expected. After just finishing Birth by Sleep, I had an expectation for how exploring each world would be, but was surprised at how much better Kingdom Hearts was in comparison. If you ever don't feel like pushing the story forward, you can do one or all of the many side missions they have, one of those being the 99 missing Dalmatians across the world that you can look for. You can also check back every so often because you are rewarded at certain points for finding so many. There's the Trinity marks to find too. There are 4 different types: blue, red, green, and yellow. Each color is unlocked throughout the story, but more importantly, Donald and Goofy have to be in the party in order to collect them. The rewards vary from items to spells to unlocking hidden areas. Traverse Town has its own hidden postcards to be found within it, and rewards for each one that is found. If you like mini-games, you can visit the 100 Acre Wood and do Winnie the Pooh mini-games for rare items. Or you can play the Gummy Ship minigame and collect parts to build a better ship. If you're up for a challenge, later on in the game you can revisit worlds for optional bosses and new enemies. And finally, there's a Coliseum where you can fight through different cups and be rewarded with more Keyblades, spells, and items. This is also where you can grind if you find yourself stuck at any point. I absolutely loved having all this extra content. Looking into how Kingdom Hearts has aged graphically over the years, I have to say it looks pretty good for being 19 years old. There were a few moments during cutscenes where characters' faces would go from being animated to not. That was a little distracting for me, but outside of that, it's remarkable how well it stands beside games made even to this day. This is followed up by a beautiful soundtrack. The opening title music alone was enough to draw me in, but the boss fight music was even better. The upbeat and intense music that played in the back during fights made the experience even more thrilling. Every soundtrack for each world fit perfectly, even the Gummy Ship music was great. The voice acting was a nice addition too, I have no complaints. The actors sounded convincing and invested in the characters they were playing. This was refreshing considering my past experience with less committed voice actors. As for Kingdom Hearts gameplay, it starts off quite simple and feels like any run-of-the-mill RPG. You begin with the bare bones, and as you level up you unlock new abilities to equip. The earlier stages make the combat feel slow and clunky, but as you get to higher levels and start unlocking new ways to fight, the combat evolves into an exciting and fluid system. So let's go over how everything works. Sora, Donald, and Goofy are all set up with their own weapons. Sora has his Keyblade, that can be upgraded with keychains you receive at the end of each world or through other challenges. Donald has his staff, and Goofy has his shield. Better versions of these can be bought or found through challenges in the game too. Additionally, you can adjust how party members behave during fights. You can choose how often they attack, use spells, use items, and so on. This is extremely helpful with every party member having a different fighting style. Physical abilities are unlocked as you level up and usually cost MP. Most of these abilities have to be triggered under specific situations, whether it be after a land combo, an air combo, or having sufficient enough MP to use it. It varies with each ability. Passive abilities are unlocked as you level up as well. Some of these abilities can make the difference between life and death, so I highly recommend that you keep an eye out for them. They can also help with money farming if you ever find yourself running low. Spells, on the other hand, are found throughout the entire game and can be rewarded through the story, hidden behind challenges, or in secret areas. Every physical and passive ability costs a certain amount of AP, and every character only has so much AP storage, so you have to choose what abilities you want to have on. Thankfully, AP storage raises as you level up and can be improved with items and equipment you find throughout the game. Eventually, you're given summoning gems to unlock Disney characters to fight alongside you. Once you have a summoning gem, all you have to do is bring it to the fairy godmother in Merlin's house, and she will unlock it for you. All summons have different advantages and are quite helpful in the right situation. Synthesizing is introduced later in the game and is used to make accessories and potions. You'll collect a lot of items throughout the game for synthesizing, but for more powerful items, you'll have to explore a little harder in each world to find the more rare items needed to create them. As for the enemies, there was a delightful approach. Their appearances change between each world and are creatively related to the theme of the world. Even better is that most enemies you encounter involve strategy to beat. If you're not careful, you can die very quick, especially on Proud Mode. The enemy variety is vast too, so you won't feel the staleness of seeing the same enemies time and time again. Overall, I had a great time with Kingdom Hearts gameplay. It was a much simpler version than I was used to, but was still a lot of fun. That doesn't mean it didn't come with a few flaws though. To start off light, the opening with Destiny Island is way too long and drawn out. Mix that with a collectathon just made the first hour of this game grueling. Moving on, the auto softlock system for combat is awful. It's not as bad as the hardlock staying on a single enemy, but when the softlock jumps from enemy to enemy, pulling the camera around, it can be disorienting. On top of that, when navigating through smaller areas or chasing down flying enemies, the camera is less than cooperative than I hoped it would be. As for the bosses, I liked that they weren't as simple as just attacking them head on. Most of the bosses had some form of a mechanic to work around that made the fights more engaging. The only issue I had was with the difficulty jumping between unbelievably easy to unimaginably hard. That being said, Kingdom Hearts had some of the most fun bosses I've had to fight in a long time. Lastly is the AI for party members. I loved having all these legendary Disney characters to fight with, but there were more times than I bothered to count that I would catch them either not doing anything or running head on into an attack and getting killed. Even if I brought them back, they'd just do the same thing and run head on into a fight and not avoid anything. This was especially frustrating on boss fights, when they would constantly run directly into the one-hit killing moves over and over. I tried adjusting how they behaved during fights, but nothing really made a difference. I spent most fights protecting them or picking them back up. Near the end of the game, after grinding their levels up a lot, it wasn't as bad, but early and mid-game, they were pretty much useless. This is even more noticeable on Proud Mode. By the time I finished Kingdom Hearts, I had just over 40 hours clocked in. I found myself loving Sora and Riku's growth. Having them both motivated towards the same thing but using different methods was interesting. Sora's growth is a little more complicated since he tries to accomplish so many other things along with saving Riku and Kairi. The responsibilities he takes on is inspiring. Even with his desire to save Riku and Kairi, Sora stops every step of the way to help anyone in need while fulfilling his role as a Keyblade wielder. Watching his friendship grow with Donald and Goofy while his friendship with Riku fell apart was a roller coaster of emotions. Overall, Sora's progression throughout the game was a great, heartfelt story all the way to the end. Riku, on the other hand, stayed focused on his main goal of saving Kairi. He's manipulated into assisting the bad guys, which leads him to using his darkness and the Heartless as a means to get Kairi back. His determination to save Kairi at any cost is admirable, and his realization of what he's done by the end is another great story all the way to the end. Sadly, Kairi takes a back seat for the majority of the game. She does have an important role, but its reveal or relevance isn't until the end of the game. Even then, it's short-lived. I'm hoping she has a more essential role in the future considering how important she is to Sora and Riku. In the end, I absolutely loved Kingdom Hearts. I found myself less confused than I thought I'd be. I still have a few questions, but I can understand why most people would be confused after playing this. Like I mentioned in my last video, this series is spread over 10 or more games, so I expected there to be plot holes and unanswered questions that will be explained further in the series. With that being said, I have to admit I have fallen deeper into the rabbit hole that is Kingdom Hearts lore. I'm more curious than ever and can't wait to play the next game. If you haven't played Kingdom Hearts, I 100% recommend that you do. And there you have it, my opinion on Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. Thank you for watching. If you liked this and want to see more, make sure to check out my last video on Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix and click that subscribe button. If you want to see more of me, then head over to Twitch where I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Link will be in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon.